You have been living inside your mind your entire life, and you still do not know how it works. Think about that for a moment. You have spent every single day of your existence inside this extraordinary instrument. You have thought with it, felt with it, dreamed with it, suffered with it, created with it, loved with it. Every experience you have ever had has been mediated by this single, astonishing, utterly mysterious structure. And yet, if someone asked you right now to explain how it actually works, not the surface-level descriptions you have heard, but the genuine mechanism, the actual architecture of how your mind generates your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions, your sense of who you are, you would not be able to answer. Not because you are not intelligent enough, not because the information has not been available, but because nobody ever taught you. Nobody sat you down and said, "This is the most important instrument you will ever use. This is how it actually works. This is what it is doing beneath the surface of everything you consciously experience, and this is what you can do about it." School taught you mathematics, history, science, language, but not this. Not the one subject that determines how well you can learn everything else. How well you can navigate every relationship. How effectively you can pursue every goal. How deeply you can experience every moment of the life you are living. Today, in this video that changes, I am going to give you the most important understanding you have never been given. A complete, clear, genuinely useful map of how your own mind actually works. And by the time this video ends, you will understand yourself in a way you never have before. You will see your patterns with new clarity, your potential with new honesty, and your path forward with new precision. This is the video I wish someone had shown me at the beginning, and it is the video I am giving you now. Let us begin with the most fundamental fact about your mind. The fact that changes everything once you genuinely absorb it. You do not have one mind. You have two, and they are so different from each other. So different in their speed, their power, their priorities, and their methods. That calling them both by the same name is one of the great sources of confusion in human self-understanding. The first mind is the one you are using right now to listen to these words, the conscious mind, the analytical, deliberate, sequential thinker that processes approximately 40 bits of information per second. That can hold approximately 7 items in its working memory at any given moment. That operates in the language of words and logic and conscious intention. That sets the goals, makes the plans, holds the values, and believes it is running the show. The second mind operates entirely beneath the surface of conscious awareness. The subconscious mind, processing approximately 11 million bits of information per second. That is not a typo. 11 million compared to the conscious mind's 40. The subconscious controls your heartbeat, your breathing, your immune function, your hormonal regulation, your body temperature, your digestion, and every automatic behavior, emotional reaction, and deeply held belief you carry. It is running simultaneously in every cell of your body, reading the environment, updating its predictions, adjusting its programs, making the vast majority of the decisions that the conscious mind will later believe it made. Here is the number that matters most. Neuroscientists estimate that approximately 95% of your brain activity, including your decisions, your emotions, your actions, and your behaviors, originates in the subconscious, the conscious mind. The one you identify as you, the one doing the thinking and the planning and the deciding, is responsible for approximately 5% of your actual mental activity. 5%? The remaining 95% is happening beneath the surface, in the subconscious. In the vast, dark, extraordinarily powerful dimension of the mind that almost nobody ever learns to work with deliberately. This is where your life is actually being created. Not in the 5% you can see, In the 95% you cannot. The subconscious mind does not arrive empty. It arrives with the basic survival architecture that evolution has built over millions of years, and then it is programmed continuously, relentlessly, through every experience that enters it. With extraordinary efficiency and extraordinary permanence, the programming happens through two primary mechanisms. The first is repetition. Any thought, feeling, or behavior that is repeated consistently enough builds a neural pathway, a physical connection between neurons that becomes faster and more automatic with each repetition. This is the neurological basis of every habit you have ever formed, every skill you have ever learned, every belief that has become so deeply embedded that it no longer feels like a belief, it feels like reality. The second mechanism is emotional charge. Experiences that are accompanied by intense emotion, whether positive or negative, are installed in the subconscious with extraordinary speed and depth. A single emotionally charged experience can install a program that repetition alone would have taken years to build. This is why childhood experiences have such disproportionate power over adult life, because they combine both mechanisms. They were repeated daily in the most emotionally formative years of human development, in the theta brainwave state when the subconscious had no analytical filter, absorbing everything directly, without evaluation, without the capacity to ask whether what was being installed was actually true or useful or something the developing person would consciously choose. And what was installed in those early years, through the combination of repetition and emotional charge, in the completely open subconscious of a developing child, became the operating system. The programs that still determine 95% of your mental activity today, whether you are aware of them or not, whether they serve you or not, whether you would choose them if you had the choice or not. Now let us explore one of the most profound and most practically important truths about the human mind, the way it creates the reality you experience. Because most people believe that the mind simply perceives reality, that there is a world out there, and the mind receives information about it as accurately as possible, and responds to what it receives. This is not how the mind works, not even close. Your mind does not perceive reality. It constructs it. Every moment of conscious experience you have ever had, every color you have ever seen, every sound you have ever heard, every emotion you have ever felt, is not a direct recording of the external world. It is the mind's best construction of what the external world might be, based on the sensory information available, filtered through the existing programs of the subconscious, interpreted through the lens of past experience, and assembled into a coherent experience that feels like simple perception but is actually an extraordinarily sophisticated act of construction. The evidence for this is everywhere once you know to look for it. Two people can be in the same room, experiencing the same circumstances, and have genuinely different experiences of what is happening. Not different interpretations of the same experience, different experiences. Because their subconscious programs are filtering the available information differently. One person's reticular activating system, the neural network responsible for determining what reaches conscious awareness from the 11 million bits available every second, is letting through the evidence that confirms their existing programs while filtering out the evidence that would challenge them. The other person's RAAs doing the same thing with their different programs, and the result is that they are quite literally not experiencing the same reality. They are experiencing different constructions of reality shaped by different subconscious programs. This is not a philosophical abstraction. It has direct and immediate practical consequences. The person whose subconscious carries programs of scarcity is literally not perceiving the same opportunities as the person whose subconscious carries programs of abundance in the same environment. The person whose subconscious carries programs of unworthiness is literally constructing a different social reality where the same interactions carry different meanings, different threats, different implications than the social reality constructed by the person whose subconscious carries programs of genuine self-worth. Your subconscious programs are not just influencing how you feel about reality. They are determining what reality you experience. And changing the programs changes the reality, not as magic, as the neurological mechanism through which the mind has always worked. No map of the human mind is complete without a genuine understanding of emotion, because emotion is not, as our culture tends to treat it, the opposite of rational thought. The interference that prevents clear thinking, the noise that obscures the signal of pure reason, emotion is the primary language of the subconscious. It is the mechanism through which the subconscious communicates its assessment of the current situation to the conscious mind, and it is the carrier signal through which new programs are installed. Emotions are information. Extraordinarily precise, extraordinarily fast, extraordinarily important information. When you feel fear, your subconscious is communicating something in this situation matches the pattern of a previous experience that produced a threat response. When you feel joy, your subconscious is communicating something in this situation matches the pattern of experiences that were deeply satisfying. When you feel the particular quality of discomfort that accompanies approaching your upper limit, your subconscious is communicating, this level of good exceeds what I've been programmed to believe is safe for you. The problem is not with the emotions themselves. The problem is with the programs that generate them. When the subconscious programs are calibrated to the actual current reality, the emotions they generate are accurate and useful guides. When the subconscious programs are calibrated to the reality of childhood, to experiences that are no longer relevant, the emotions they generate are accurate responses to outdated information. They feel real. They are real. But they are pointing toward a threat or a deficiency or a danger that exists in the programming, not in the present moment. Understanding this distinction between the emotion as a genuine communication from the subconscious and the program that generated the emotion as a potentially outdated interpretation of reality is one of the most important acts of psychological maturity available to a human being, because it allows you to receive the emotion as information without being controlled by the program that generated it, to feel the fear without automatically executing the fear response, to feel the unworthiness without accepting unworthiness as the truth about who you are, to feel the upper limit discomfort without dismantling what you have built in order to resolve it. One of the most significant shifts in scientific understanding of the past 50 years is the recognition that the mind and the body are not separate, systems that occasionally influence each other. They are a single integrated system that cannot be fully understood by examining either one in isolation. The field of psychoneuroimmunology, the study of the interactions between psychological processes, the nervous system, and the immune system, has documented with remarkable precision the specific mechanisms through which thoughts and emotions affect physical health, physiology, and even gene expression. Dr. Candace Pert, whose discovery of neuropeptide receptors throughout the body transformed our understanding of the mind-body connection, described the body as the subconscious mind. Her research demonstrated that the molecules of emotion, the neuropeptides and their receptors, are found not just in the brain but throughout every system of the body: the immune system, the endocrine system, the digestive system, every organ, every tissue. Communicating through the language of chemistry, the body is not simply a vehicle for the mind. It is a dimension of the mind, and the programs running in the subconscious are running in the body just as much as in the brain. This understanding has profound practical implications. It means that the chronic tension in the shoulders is not separate from the chronic vigilance program running in the subconscious. It is the same thing expressed in a different register. It means that the digestive disruption that arrives before a situation that the subconscious has marked as threatening is not a coincidence. It is the subconscious program communicating its threat assessment through the enteric nervous system, the gut's own neural network, which contains more neurons than the spinal cord. It means that the fatigue that persists despite adequate sleep is not a failure of the body's recovery system. It is the subconscious running programs that consume the body's resources continuously, regardless of whether the body is resting. And it means that the updating of subconscious programs is not only a psychological event, it is a physiological one. When the programs change, the body changes, the posture changes, the breathing changes, the hormonal environment changes, the immune function changes, the experience of being in a body changes. The mind and the body are one system, and healing one is healing the other. No understanding of the human mind is complete without an exploration of how the mind's programs shape and are shaped by the relational world, because human beings are not solitary processors of individual experience. We are profoundly social creatures whose minds developed in the context of relationship, and whose subconscious programs are formed, maintained, and updated primarily through relational experience. The mirror neuron system, discovered by Giacomo Rizzolatti in the 1990s, gave us the first neurological glimpse of how deeply the boundaries between individual minds are blurred in the context of close relationship. Mirror neurons fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. Your brain literally simulates the experience of another person inside your own nervous system, which means that the emotional states, the behavioral patterns, the subconscious programs of the people around you are not simply observed by your subconscious. They are experienced neurologically, inside your own mind and body. This is why the emotional atmosphere of the home you grew up in had such a profound effect on your subconscious programs. You were not simply observing your parents' emotional responses to life. You were experiencing them. Through the mirror neuron system, through the process of emotional contagion, through the continuous subconscious reading of the relational field that every social animal performs automatically. And it is why the people you spend the most time with now continue to shape your subconscious programs, for better or for worse. The subconscious programs of your closest relationships are continuously transmitted to you through the same mechanisms that made your parents' programs so formative. The mirror neurons continue their work. The emotional contagion continues its transmission. The relational field continues its programming, long past childhood, long past the obvious developmental windows. This is one of the most important reasons that the quality of your relationships is not simply a matter of emotional well-being. It is a matter of neurological programming. The people you are closest to are not just part of your life. They are part of your mind. They are contributing to the subconscious programs that determine 95% of your mental activity every day. One of the most extraordinary and least appreciated features of the human mind is its relationship with time. Because while the body can only exist in the present moment, the mind has the capacity to exist in 3 temporal dimensions simultaneously. It can revisit the past, anticipate the future, and be present to the current moment. And the way the mind uses this capacity determines more about the quality of a human life than almost any external circumstance. The past exists in the mind as memory. But memory is not what most people believe it to be. Memory is not a recording, it is a reconstruction. Every time you remember an experience, you are not retrieving a stored file. You are rebuilding the experience from fragments, in the context of who you currently are, with the emotional coloring of your current subconscious state. This is why the same experience can be remembered differently at different points in life. Why the painful memory that was once defining can sometimes soften with time. and why the apparently neutral memory can suddenly become painful in the context of a new emotional understanding. The past does not have a fixed meaning. It has the meaning that your current subconscious programs give it. And when the programs change, the past changes too. The future exists in the mind as anticipation and imagination, and the subconscious plays an extraordinary role in determining what futures the mind can even imagine as genuinely possible. The reticular activating system, which filters the 11 million bits of information available every second to select what reaches conscious awareness, applies the same filtering to imagined futures. The subconscious programs that determine what is real and what is possible in the present moment apply the same determination to the imagined future. The person whose subconscious carries programs of scarcity cannot genuinely imagine abundance, not as a real possibility that their body responds to as genuinely available. They can think about it, but the body does not respond with the felt sense of possibility that genuine imagining produces. The imagination is filtered before it can become the genuinely felt vision that produces the neurological priming for new outcome. In the present moment, this moment, the only moment in which anything can actually be experienced or changed, is paradoxically the one dimension of time that the mind most consistently fails to inhabit, because the subconscious programs that orient the mind toward past threat and future danger pull it continuously away from the only place where life is actually happening, the present. The practice of genuine presence, of inhabiting the current moment rather than processing the past or anticipating the future, is one of the most valuable and most difficult achievements available to the human mind, because it runs directly against the subconscious's evolutionary mandate to scan for threat, to process past experience, and to anticipate future danger. Presence is not the natural state of the unexamined mind. It is an achievement earned through deliberate practice, and extraordinarily rewarding to those who develop it. No complete guide to the human mind would be honest without a serious exploration of sleep, because sleep is not the absence of mental activity, it is the period of the mind's most important work. The period during which the subconscious consolidates the day's learning, processes unresolved emotional experiences, clears the metabolic waste products that accumulate during waking neural activity, and updates its programs based on the day's evidence. The discovery of the glymphatic system, the brain's waste clearance system that operates primarily during deep sleep, represented one of the most significant advances in neuroscience of the past decade. During deep slow-wave sleep, the brain's interstitial spaces expand by approximately 60%, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to flush out the metabolic byproducts of a day of neural activity, including the proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease, including the cortisol and stress hormones that accumulate during waking hours. The brain literally cleans itself during deep sleep. And when deep sleep is consistently compromised, whether by the chronic vigilance programs we discussed earlier, or by the modern lifestyle's systematic assault on sleep quality, this cleaning process is compromised. The accumulated metabolic waste affects cognitive function, emotional regulation, and the subconscious's capacity for genuine program updating. The REM sleep stages, in which the most vivid dreaming occurs, serve a different but equally important function. REM sleep is when the emotional charge of the day's experiences is processed, when the threatening experience that activated the stress response during the day is integrated and its emotional intensity reduced, when the connections between new information and existing knowledge are formed, when the creative synthesis that produces the unexpected solution or the genuine insight emerges from the subconscious's unconstrained processing. This is why the advice to sleep on a problem is not folk wisdom. It is neuroscience. The sleeping subconscious has access to processing resources and creative synthesis capacities that the waking, conscious mind cannot match. And the dreams it produces, however strange their surface content, are the subconscious's attempt to communicate the results of its overnight processing to the conscious mind. in the language of symbol and metaphor and felt experience rather than in the language of words and logic, because symbol and felt experience are the subconscious's native tongue. Creativity is one of the most mysterious and most misunderstood capacities of the human mind. Because most people experience creativity as something that either arrives or does not, as a gift that some people have and others lack, rather than as a specific relationship between the conscious and subconscious minds that can be understood and cultivated. The creative process, studied carefully across domains and across centuries, consistently follows the same essential structure, regardless of whether it is producing a mathematical theorem, a symphony, a business model, or a solution to a personal dilemma. The first stage is preparation. The conscious mind engages intensely with the problem or the domain, gathering information, exploring angles, attempting solutions, building a thorough map of what is known and what remains elusive. The second stage is incubation. The conscious mind releases the problem, either deliberately or through fatigue or distraction, and the subconscious takes over, processing the material that the conscious mind provided, making connections between pieces of information that the sequential logic of conscious thought could not. Bridge. Exploring combinations and possibilities at the speed of 11 million bits per second. Without the constraints of conventional thinking or the pressure of performance or the filtering of the analytical mind, the third stage is illumination. The insight arrives, often suddenly, often at a moment when the conscious mind is relaxed or occupied with something else entirely, in the shower, on the walk, in the twilight between sleep and waking. The subconscious delivers what it has synthesized. The conscious mind receives it with the specific quality of recognition that accompanies genuine insight, the felt sense of course, how did I not see that before? The fourth stage is verification. The conscious mind evaluates and refines what the subconscious has delivered, builds the structure around it, tests it against reality, and gives it the form in which it can be shared with the world. The creative genius in every field is not the person with the most powerful conscious mind. It is the person who has developed the most productive relationship between their conscious and subconscious mind. Who knows how to prepare? Well, release fully, receive clearly, and refine honestly. The creativity was always there in the subconscious, waiting for the conscious mind to get out of the way long enough to let it speak. Now let us bring everything together into the practical understanding of how to work with your mind rather than against. How to move from being unconsciously run by the 95% to being a conscious participant in the full architecture of your own mental life. The first principle is awareness. You cannot work with what you cannot see. And the most important awareness is the awareness of the gap between what you consciously intend and what your subconscious automatically executes. Every time you notice that gap, every time you observe yourself doing something that contradicts your conscious values or goals or intentions, you are being given a glimpse of a subconscious program. Do not judge what you see. Do not add shame to the observation, simply see it with the curiosity of someone who has just been given important information about how their own mind works. The second principle is timing. The subconscious is not equally accessible at all times. The theta windows, the 20 minutes after waking and the 20 minutes before sleep, are the periods of greatest subconscious receptivity. The periods in which new programs can be installed with the least resistance and the greatest depth. Using these windows deliberately, consistently, with the specific practices of the theta state that we have explored throughout this channel, is the most efficient use of the subconscious's own architecture to produce the changes you genuinely want. The third principle is emotion. The subconscious does not respond to words alone. It responds to the emotional and physiological state that accompanies the word. Every practice of subconscious reprogramming that does not include genuine emotional engagement is operating at a fraction of its potential effectiveness. Generate the genuine elevated emotion first: gratitude, love, genuine excitement, and from within that emotional state, Introduce the new program. The subconscious installs what it feels, not what it hears. The fourth principle is consistency. Neural pathways are built through repetition over time. The daily practice, maintained with patience and genuine commitment, produces results that the occasional intense effort cannot. 5 minutes of daily theta practice is worth more than 5 hours of monthly practice. The subconscious learns from consistency more than from intensity. The fifth principle is evidence. The subconscious updates its programs in response to genuine experiential evidence. Every time you act in alignment with the new program and find that the feared consequence does not materialize, you give the subconscious a piece of evidence that updates the old program. Accumulate the evidence deliberately, one aligned action at a time, one day at a time, until the new program has enough neural weight to become the dominant automatic response. The human mind has been studied by the greatest thinkers in every tradition across every century. And what is most striking about the wisdom they have produced is not how different their conclusions are, but how consistently they point toward the same fundamental truths. William James, the father of American psychology, wrote at the turn of the 20th century that the greatest discovery of my generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their attitudes of mind. He was describing, in the language of his era, what we now understand as neuroplasticity and subconscious reprogramming, the understanding that the mind is not fixed, that the programs running it are not permanent, that the deliberate application of attention and intention can genuinely change the mental architecture that generates behavior. Carl Jung spent his life mapping the relationship between the conscious and unconscious dimensions of the mind, and concluded that the most important work available to a human being is the work of making the unconscious conscious, of bringing into deliberate awareness the programs that have been running automatically, and choosing which ones to keep and which ones to update. He understood that the unlived life, the potential suppressed by unexamined programs, was the most powerful source of human suffering, and that the genuine living of that life, the courage to become who one actually is beneath the programming, was the most important achievement available to a human being. The Stoic philosophers, 2,000 years before the neuroscience existed to explain what they were observing, understood that the quality of a human life is determined by the quality of the mind's habitual orientations, by what it pays attention to, what it takes as given, what it treats as threat, and what it treats as opportunity. Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, each in their own way developed practices for deliberately cultivating the mind's orientations, rather than simply accepting whatever the default programming produced. They were doing subconscious work without the language of neuroscience, because the truth they were pointing toward does not depend on the language, it depends on the practice. And the practice they describe, of daily deliberate attention to the quality of one's own thinking, of consistent examination of the premises beneath one's responses, of the patient cultivation of new mental orientations through the repetition of chosen thoughts, is recognizably the same practice that modern neuroscience now explains through the mechanism of neuroplasticity and the architecture of the subconscious mind. Let us return to where we began. You have been living inside your mind your entire life, and now, for the first time, you know how it works. You know that you have two minds, the conscious mind processing 40 bits per second, and the subconscious processing 11 million, and that 95% of your mental activity is happening in the one you were never taught to work with deliberately. You know that the subconscious was programmed through repetition and emotional charge, primarily in the theta state of early childhood, when everything entered without filter, without evaluation, and without your consent. And that those programs have been running ever since, generating the reality you experience through the construction of perception, through the filtering of the reticular activating system, through the mirror neurons and emotional contagion of your relational world, through the mind-body integration that makes your thoughts a physiological event. You know that emotion is the subconscious's primary language. That memory is a reconstruction rather than a recording. That creativity arises from the partnership of conscious and subconscious rather than from either one alone. That sleep is not the absence of mental activity, but its most important dimension. You know, the 5 principles for working with your mind rather than against it: awareness, timing, emotion, consistency, and evidence. And you know, perhaps most importantly, that none of this is fixed, none of it is permanent, none of it is the unchangeable truth about who you are. The programs are not you, they are programs, and programs, as we have established throughout this channel, can be changed. The mind you were given, with the programs it was given before you had any say in the matter, is not the mind you are limited to. It is the starting point, the raw material from which, with the right understanding and the right practices, something genuinely more aligned with who you actually are can be built. Not quickly, not without consistent effort, not without the particular kind of patience that comes from understanding the mechanism well enough to trust the process when the results are not yet visible, but genuinely, neurologically, permanently. You have been living inside your mind your entire life. And now you know how it works. The question that remains, the only question that has ever really mattered, is what you are going to do with that knowledge. Subscribe to Awake Mind. I will see you in the next one.